Welcome back, Year 10. This is lesson 4 of your Living World Ecosystems topic, and today we're going to be talking about the characteristics of tropical rainforests. So we'll be looking at the climate of tropical rainforests, and we'll start to look at the plants and animals that survive here. For this lesson, we won't be using the booklet that we've been using for all of the other lessons. We're going to be using just paper, or you're going to be doing your work electronically today, but you do need your climate graph and the questions that you answered on the climate graph in front of you. I will also be asking you to submit today's work to me via Show My Homework as well. So first of all, we need to look at where you would find tropical rainforests. This is really important because where you find them determines what the climate's like, what the sunlight, the temperature, the rainfall is like, and without them being located in these particular places, they wouldn't have that particular climate. So hopefully you already know this from doing your biomes research a couple of lessons ago, but we tend to find our tropical rainforests 23.5 degrees north and south of the equator. So we find that between the tropics, those two dotted lines, and the equator, which is the solid line. We only find them in these places. We don't find them anywhere else because they have to have such specific temperature, rainfall, sunshine. So they are found on or around the equator and between the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer. The major areas of tropical rainforests are in Southeast Asia, so places like the Philippines, Borneo, Indonesia, etc., West Africa, and also South and Central America. So obviously you've got the Amazon rainforest there as well. Just as a little reminder, the reasons why we find rainforests here is because we have air rising from the surface. So we have low pressure here. Remember, pressure is talking about what it's like at the surface. So if our air is rising upwards, it means the air is not being squeezed at the surface. And because the air is rising upwards, then the moisture that's being carried in the air starts to condense as it cools down, and that creates rain clouds. And clues in the name, rainforests have a lot of rain. So we are going to take a quick look at your climate graphs, which was your work for last lesson. And you can see here that this is my attempt at drawing a climate graph. I'll be honest, it did take me 2 attempts. So if it's taken you several attempts, don't worry about that at all. And what you can see here is that we have a lot of rain happening in most months, and we have a really consistent temperature. The minimum temperature, that line towards the bottom of the graph, is literally exactly the same every month throughout the year. And the maximum temperature, although it looks like it changes a lot, it only changes by 2 degrees. So we have a very consistent temperature, very consistent amount of sunlight, but the rain does differ a little bit. So the answers that you should have got for your questions are the mean temperature is 32 degrees. The maximum mean temperature is 32 degrees because remember we've got 2 separate sets of data for the maximum and the minimum temperature. So if you worked it out for the maximum temperature, you'd get 32 degrees. If you worked it out for the minimum temperature, no surprise, it's 24 degrees. Or if you'd worked it out overall, so you'd added all the maximum and minimum temperatures together, you should get 27.9 degrees. For the precipitation then, there's a bit more change, a bit more variation. So the mean precipitation across the whole year was 150.9 millimetres. That is a fair amount of precipitation compared to somewhere like the UK. Even though we think we get a lot of rain, we don't get anywhere near as much as places like the tropical rainforest. The other 2 questions that you had were to describe how the temperature changes throughout the year and quote data. So the temperature, as I mentioned, doesn't really vary much at all. There is a slight increase in temperature from 31 degrees to 33 degrees by August, which stays at that same temperature until it drops again slightly to 32 degrees in December. Now this quite nicely corresponds with how precipitation changes throughout the year because we can see quite a big difference. So when the temperature is warmer, as it is in July, August, September, the precipitation is also lower. So although in the rainforest the temperature and the rainfall is really similar most of the year, they do have a slight seasonal variation. So like we have big differences between our summer and our winter, there is a slight difference between the hotter season in the rainforest, which is July onwards, where you have slightly warmer temperatures and a lot less precipitation, compared to the other half of the year when you've got really high rainfall and a relatively consistent temperature of about 31 degrees. Here, you can see that normally a tree has quite a straight tree trunk with a little kind of kick out at the bottom. So the very bottom of it where the roots are is always a little bit wider than the trunk of the tree. But for the absolute tallest trees, they have these things called buttress roots, and that means that they spread really far outwards to kind of anchor themselves into the ground, because the taller with humans, the bigger feet you have, so that you can remain balanced and you can stay upright. With trees, they have these big buttress roots to do that same job, to help them balance and to help them anchor themselves into the ground because they are so tall. So, as I said, what I need you to do with that information, as well as the information from the textbook and from the two pages of information you'll find on the right hand side, I need you to create something similar to the beautiful diagram that's in the box there, and I would like you to annotate it with information about each of the 4 layers of the rainforest. So for each layer you need to talk about what the rainfall and sunlight is like here, the height of the trees, and the types of plants and animals which survive here. As well as that, either on the back of your page or somewhere around the edge if you've got room, you also need to add some information about some of the adaptations that trees have made. So I've talked to you about drip tips and waxy leaves. I've talked to you about buttress roots, but there are also some things called lianas, which you need to do some reading up on, and you'll find that information in the textbook. This should take you around 35 to 40 minutes to do a good job of it. And I would like you to please submit this work to me using Show My Homework or email if you can't get that to work, and you will get some feedback on it. Make sure this is 40 minutes worth of work. Please make sure that you're doing yourself justice and you're not just rushing it in 10 minutes, because the only thing I'll do is say, oh, you've not included this or this, go back and do it. So do a really good job of it the first time round. I really look forward to seeing these, and I will see you again for our next lesson.